And welcome to another edition of South Texas Crossfire. This is Attorney Joe Flores reminding you to join us each and every week right here on KTMB, Channel 6, Time Warner in Corpus Christi. Don Humberto and all the family making it possible. Appreciate it. And special congratulations to him. 50 years in broadcasting. He made it all happen, starting in San Antonio and there. Now, let's not forget Channel 21, K Alamo in San Antonio, Texas, Time Warner, and also KVTV in Laredo, our CBS affiliate, right after CSI and right before Wheel of Fortune. And we're even going 80 miles into Laredo, Nuevo Laredo, out there in Mexico. And YouTube. You can go to YOUTUBE and click on South Texas Crossfire. We have 100 uploads and growing. You can always see our shows there. With me today, I have the distinct pleasure of introducing a trial lawyer. This gentleman has been ranked as one of the premier trial lawyers in the nation, the top 45 under 45, and also the top 5 lawyers to go to in H-Town, Houston, Texas. Also has tried multiple cases in commercial litigation, product liability, and I'm also going to be talking about a very hot topic that affects our children, that affects our welfare, that affects national policy, and that is about China and imported products. We're going to be talking about that and why he does what he does, and also I want to underline he's got his commitment to Christ. He has founded the Christian Trial Lawyers Association, whom I'm a very proud member of. I welcome Mr. Mark Lanier. Welcome, Mark.
Joe, what a pleasure to be here. A delight. You've got one tremendous show, and it's an honor to be a part of it.
Well, I'm privileged. When I first, and I thank you for meeting, and Charles, Mickey, here at your firm set it up, and one of the first interviews that I'd seen of you, of course, I've gone to your Christian Trial Lawyers Association meetings, but when I saw that interview about that child, let's just jump feet first into it. I don't mince words on this show. When I heard about that child's death, about that Chinese ball, Can you tell the audience out there about that a little bit?
It was a tragic situation. A single father has 3 children. He drives through, actually through Whataburger, a Corpus Christi-based fast food place, who had put together what seemed to be a good child's bag with their equivalent of the Happy Meal or whatever they call it. But in it was a plastic rubber ball that was made in China. And the rubber ball was made in such a way where it looked like it had a crease all the way around it. It was a seam is what it was, where the 2 pieces of the molding came together to make that ball. That seam was something that in the eyes of a 5-year-old looked like you could crack it open,
right,
because inside this see-through rubber ball was a little dinosaur. And so really it was a dinosaur ball to play with, to throw up and down and let it bounce, but she thought it might be one of those things you get out of the machines where you could open it and get the dinosaur out. She couldn't, of course, open it. It wasn't made to be opened. She put it in her mouth and tried to bite it open, and in the process of trying to bite it, it shot back and lodged into her throat. So here you've got a daddy with a daughter choking on a toy. It was made in China. The dad's trying desperately to get it out. It's made in such a way he can't get it out. 911's there on the spot. The EMS technicians, they've got forceps, they've got pliers, they've got everything trying to pry it out, and no one can get it out of her throat, and she dies in her daddy's arms while the rescue people are working trying to get it out. Absolutely tragic situation. They come to us. Well, what do? Do we go after Whataburger, who put it in their bag, but they weren't selling it? It wasn't their product. They hadn't made it like they had the chicken strips or whatever was in her meal. So we go after the company in China. The company in China says, yeah, maybe we made a bad ball. Maybe we made a ball that's the wrong size. That's a choking hazard. Maybe we made a ball that doesn't measure up because there's no way to get a grip on it. It's got a seam. It doesn't look right. All sorts of problems with the ball, but we're in China. What can you do? You want to come over to China and fight us? Fine. Of course, we can't get justice in China.
Well, you bring up an interesting point, because trying to do that, and I saw your interview, I think that was with CNBC, if I am not mistaken, and that's uploaded on YouTube too. I think if you click on Mark Lanier, it'll come out, and that's a very interesting interview. But just to underline, that's not the only product that they're trying to escape liability on by saying, well, if you want to sue us, how do you even begin to hold these people accountable?
It's really tough, and I call on our legislators to help fix this problem, because this requires a legislative solution. You ought to be writing your congressman, you ought to be writing your senators saying, we need some help here. Here's what's happened. You have these companies over in China that are making these toys. They do not have the litigation exposure that American companies would. In America, you got to make something right if you're going to sell it. If not, you're going to meet Joe Flores down in the valley, or you're going to meet us over here in Houston or somewhere, and you're going to be held accountable. So you got to make it right in the United States. These foreign toy companies in China, they don't do enough business where you can get them over here and hold them accountable in our court system. They don't pay the insurance premiums that our American companies have to pay either. See, so they get to price their products cheaper. They price them cheaper because they're made cheaper. They price them cheaper because they're not made to standards. They price them cheaper because they don't have insurance that they have to cover. They price them cheaper because they can't be held accountable in the courts. So not only do we have this huge amount of products that are dangerous coming into our market, but we've got people who are undercutting good, honest American, Mexican, Canadian, other businesses are being undercut because they can't do it as cheaply as the Chinese. It's a real pity.
Well, and that's probably somebody trying to call in. The other issue that I wanted to bring out was that what we have is we've got a foreign market, and you're saying it's undercutting commerce. It's bad for business. Even
bad
if
for
you're
business.
A right-wing extreme person or a
Doesn't
real
matter.
liberal, it doesn't matter.
Doesn't
it's
matter.
bad for business.
It's bad for business. It's not fair to American industry to have to compete against people who don't have to measure up to standards, who don't have to pay for liability insurance, who have an ability to thumb their nose at the court system, to thumb their nose at victims who get killed by their toys and at the victims' families. It is just absolutely fundamentally unfair for American businesses to have to compete against that. So the vigorous capitalists ought to be, everybody ought to be pushing for this. This is a no-brainer law. These companies ought to have to meet American standards, and they ought to have to carry some type of an insurance, and there ought to be access to them in the court system.
And let's walk through that that whole tragedy with the ball. What is going on with that case, or has it been resolved? I think a lot of the people want to know what the status of that case, that poor young girl, is.
What we had to do is we had to go after the importer, the company that imported the toy in for Whataburger, and we had to go after Whataburger. In the normal legal scheme, the way you and I learned law school, Joe, you can go after those folks, and those folks then turn around and sue the Chinese manufacturer. The problem is they don't have a Chinese manufacturer to sue. So who gets hurt? It's the Whataburger, it's the importers. They're the ones that ultimately get holding the bag because they're not able to go back and get the money back from the Chinese. I ultimately was able to take care of the daddy and the brothers and try and get some measure of justice, though you can't replace a child, no matter how much money is involved. You can't replace the agony, no matter how much money is involved. But at least there was some measure of justice. You look at the Whataburgers of the world, they're the ones left holding the bag. It's a sad deal.
Well, and I started out with that example because I think people, time and time again on this show, we've been bringing out trial lawyers like yourself who step up, and it's hard nowadays. I mean, when you go pick a jury on a Monday morning, and people in the first place, a lot don't want to be there, and it's tough getting a jury. You've handled Vioxx, you've handled multiple different sorts of pharmaceutical litigation, product liability. Why do you do what you do? I mean, let's zoom out and just bottom line it for people out there. You know, a lot of people have vilified trial lawyers because of the mass media blast by the ultra-conservatives and big business. But how do you do, going in the trenches day after day and taking on these cases, knowing that, I mean, you're really taking on an army?
Yeah, what we're doing, in my opinion, the way I like to work it is we're kind of the prosecutors, if you will, for civil crime. In other words, if you or I were to go out and kill someone, there'd be a DA who'd come prosecute us and try and throw us in jail.
That's right.
If instead we're a business and we kill someone for money, the DA doesn't get to go throw you in jail. You can't throw a company in jail.